Barriers to Green Volunteering for Disabled People in Surrey, 2023. The project. Research was undertaken to understand the barriers preventing people from the disabled community from taking up volunteering opportunities within green spaces. The method. The coalition gathered feedback from the disabled community residing in Surrey through a variety of methods. A survey was designed and distributed online to the coalition members and circulated further to other organisations who regularly interact with people from at least one subgroup of the disabled community. The survey received 19 responses. The method. In addition to this, we asked 4 questions designed to promote group discussion about green volunteering at focus groups with members of the Disability Empowerment Networks in Surrey, the Independent Mental Health Network, and other disability-based special interest groups. We also interviewed a member of staff currently supporting people with learning disabilities, enabling them to volunteer. The method. To gather feedback from disabled people currently engaged in green volunteering roles on a regular basis, we conducted several one-to-one interviews and a group session with 6 volunteers from Surrey Choices. Surrey Choices supports people with learning disabilities, other disabled people, autistic people, those with sensory needs, those with mental health problems, and older people. Findings. 84% of those surveyed were disabled people. 53% of those surveyed had experienced mental health challenges. 21% of those surveyed were carers. The types of green volunteering people were most interested in were habitat conservation, gardening, outdoor sport and exercise, community events. Types of activity people were interested in attending: learning about the outdoors, 28%, getting fresh air, 22%, feeling part of the community, 17%, meeting new people, 11%. Quotes from the research. Some of us had recently helped the team at Surrey Hills with access audits. It was great fun, but is not something I'm able to do on my own. It gets me out of the house and cheers me up when I feel frustrated. Quotes from the research. I love walking for my mental health, but I want it to be a time I just walk in silence, be with my own thoughts and listen to my surroundings. Quotes from the research. I would have liked someone to go with. I would worry about going to a new place on my own. I would be more likely to go if I had someone to go with me. Recommendations. The data shows a high amount of interest from the disabled community in the idea of green volunteering. Lack of awareness of the opportunities available, barriers to attending, and clarity on whether the opportunities are accessible are all factors that reduce uptake from disabled people. Accessibility. The Coalition is happy to provide accessibility information or assessments of any green volunteering project, offering practical suggestions on how to allow more disabled people to take part. Volunteering roles. In order for people to make an informed choice about a green volunteering role, it would be useful to provide the following: a volunteer job description, including person specification, listing essential and desirable skills, including a description of the venue and any areas that are essential to access that could present challenges in terms of terrain, etc. This information will allow people to make informed choices about what is right for them. A list of essential clothing and equipment to be provided by the volunteer or by the organisation. Consider dividing the responsibilities of a volunteer role to enable more people to volunteer. Providing time for volunteers to rest or take breaks during the volunteering work. Create one-off involvement taster days promoted to community groups to let people experience what green volunteering is without first committing to a regular role. Transport. Lack of available, timely or appropriate transport came through clearly as one of the main barriers to most disabled people participating in green volunteering. There are a number of mitigations that could be put into place to try and lessen these problems. We recommend providing detailed information on how to access sites from the nearest public transport, trains, buses and local community buses, and also any accessible walking routes. Organising town centre pick-up and drop-off points where possible. Making use of voluntary car schemes. These are often used for hospital appointments, etc. But given the mental and physical health benefits of green volunteering, there is a case for being able to use the schemes to access volunteering as a preventative health scheme. Designing volunteering opportunities within community organisations with an agreement that an organisation which has its own minibus will provide the transport. On-site facilities. Whilst we understand that it might not be possible for all venues to have all of the facilities mentioned earlier in the report, it is important to provide as much as possible where it can be. Based on the findings of this report, we suggest: list all facilities you have, such as hand washing, toilets, food, quiet rooms, and which are completely accessible to any disability. Where possible, provide photographs of what is available, including dimensions for accessible toilets. Support. Having help from another person is essential to many disabled people, especially when in a new situation. Encourage people to bring someone along to help them if they would like. Many support workers are only available for limited hours. Where possible, organise additional staff or even a volunteer to provide this type of support to people at these roles would be an inclusive choice. This could be done within the staff of the organisation offering the volunteer, or by working with community organisations who may be willing to send someone along with people to assist them where needed. Welcoming environment. Many people told us that their willingness to volunteer in green spaces was impacted by the welcome they were given. Therefore, we recommend an organised induction which should cover the following: a list of equipment and clothing required to volunteer, which states whether this should be provided by the volunteer or the organisation. A welcome meeting to introduce new volunteers to the rest of the group. A buddy system. Individuals are paired up with a buddy for the first few weeks of the volunteering, who can show them the ropes, answer any questions, and introduce them to others. When appropriate, consider setting up a WhatsApp group to communicate messages about volunteering with all group members quickly and accessibly. A regular review with the volunteer manager, which gives the individual the opportunity to ask questions, raise concerns, and understand areas for development. At least one name contact to raise safeguarding or other issues. A discussion with each volunteer about their needs and what mitigations can be put in place to make sure they can get involved to the fullest. Information. Information and communication were other strong themes. People did not feel there was enough information about green volunteering, and what information there was is not readily accessible to everyone. We suggest that all information about green volunteering should be available in accessible formats, including easy read, in line with the Accessible Information Standard. Design a template to get all the relevant information suggested in the above recommendations categories from each opportunity to share consistent, full information. An online directory of green volunteering opportunities in Surrey with built-in accessibility options and, if possible, language translation options for Surrey residents whose primary language is not English. Information. Regularly visit and keep in contact with local secondary schools, particularly those that offer the Duke of Edinburgh Awards and Work Experience programmes. As highlighted by the report, there is a drop-off in school-going projects and opportunities to learn outside the classroom in secondary education. We recommend looking into creating more accessible green volunteering opportunities within school settings and away from schools for children to attend via school transport. All public-facing information about volunteering should be in plain English. Sharing information about green volunteering on Amazon Echo devices (Alexa) and Google to be read out by the device if someone interested asks. Insist all volunteering opportunities provide accessible contact methods, which should include a minimum of a telephone number, SMS text messaging, and email address. Personal development and training. People said training was important to them, whether this is for their own personal development or to be given them skills they can use to gain paid employment. We encourage organisations to list all training available to the volunteers and expand where possible to teach people transferable skills. Provide the opportunity to gain accredited training or qualifications whilst volunteering. Provide the option to be a job referee for good volunteers who may be looking for paid employment. Personal development and training. When a volunteer has gained confidence in performing a skill, create opportunities for them to teach that skill to others. Create pathways for volunteers to move on to more challenging roles, volunteer positions at other organisations, or paid roles in companies. Creating feeder relationships with organisations such as the council property teams and large formal garden sites or woodland management teams would be beneficial to all involved. We also recommend organisation staff undertake disability awareness training to create preparedness and design more diverse and accessible roles. Increasing engagement. We recommend setting up some groups specifically for people with similar backgrounds, life experiences of health conditions. Allowing people to volunteer in a group of people they share a common interest with may help them to relate to each other. Grief gardening groups for the recently bereaved may be something to consider starting, as it was noted by several people we talked with that being in nature, walking or gardening really helped them after the loss of a loved one. Final thoughts. Our research has shown there is a huge interest amongst the disabled community to take part in green volunteering roles, but there is a need for better communication and more support. We hope the feedback and recommendations we have made will help improve green volunteering participation for disabled people in the future, so that they too can reap the physical and mental health benefits this type of volunteering can bring.